The Rolex Submariner gleamed under the pristine lighting of prestige timepieces, seemingly within reach, yet separated by an invisible barrier far more impenetrable than the glass showcase. Marcus Johnson had saved for 3 years to afford this watch, but he was about to discover that in the world of luxury retail, $12,500 wasn't the only price he'd be expected to pay. In the heart of Oakland, Marcus Johnson woke up before his alarm went off, as he had done for more than 5 years. At 35 years old, the son of a teacher and a mechanic, he carried on his face the marks of a life of hard work and determination. His mother always said that character is what you do when no one is looking, a lesson that Marcus applied to every aspect of his life. His professional journey began at 16, washing cars. Later, he became a driver for a limousine company, standing out for his professionalism and detailed knowledge of the Bay Area. The big turning point happened 4 years ago when he was called to pick up Steph Curry at the airport. What should have been just a ride turned into a pleasant conversation, and 2 weeks later, Marcus received an offer to be Curry's full-time personal driver. "Working for Steph changed my life," he once confided to his brother. "It's not just about the salary, which is excellent. It's about the respect." During his long journeys transporting Curry, Marcus developed a passion for luxury watches. What began as curiosity transformed into a genuine interest in craftsmanship. In his spare time, he studied catalogs and forums about watchmaking. For 3 years, he meticulously saved. Every overtime hour, every tip, every bonus was deposited into an account he called the Dream Fund. His goal, a Rolex Submariner. Not the most expensive, but a symbol of what he had achieved. On that specific morning, Steph Curry was on a retreat with his family, giving Marcus a rare day off. He took a deep breath, mentally reviewing his plan. He would go to Prestige Timepieces, one of San Francisco's most renowned luxury watch stores. He had researched the place for months, observed the models in the window whenever he passed by. Today, he would finally enter as a customer. Prestige Timepieces occupied a privileged space in Union Square. Marcus had passed by there dozens of times, always observing the watches with disciplined admiration. He adjusted his shirt collar, ran his hand through his well-trimmed hair, and pushed open the heavy glass door. The interior of the store was exactly as he had imagined. Strategic lighting highlighted showcases, where watches seemed to float on black velvet. 3 salespeople were talking near the central counter. One was attending to a well-dressed couple, another explaining details to a gray-haired gentleman. The third, a young man in an impeccable suit, briefly looked at Marcus and returned his attention to his cell phone. Marcus waited patiently. He observed how the couple received glasses of champagne while examining watches. Time passed, 5 minutes, then 10. None of the salespeople approached him. Determined not to be intimidated, Marcus walked to a showcase where the model he desired was displayed. When he looked up, he noticed that a man of approximately 60 years old, with perfectly combed hair and a tailored suit, was watching him with an expression of suspicion. "May I help you?" asked the man, in a tone that suggested more of a honor verification of intentions than a genuine offer of assistance. "Good morning," Marcus replied politely. "I'm interested in seeing this Submariner up close, please." The man, Richard Bennett, the store owner, made no movement toward the showcase. Instead, his eyes scanned Marcus from head to toe, evaluating his appearance. "That particular model costs $12,500, said Richard in a tone that seemed to test Marcus's reaction. Marcus nodded. "Yes, I'm aware. That's exactly the one I'm interested in." With visible hesitation, Richard opened the showcase and removed the watch. "I've been observing this model for some time," commented Marcus. "The precision of the movement, the historical heritage. It's a truly exceptional piece." Richard didn't respond, maintaining a silence that filled the space with palpable tension. Instead of offering additional information about the watch, he formulated a question in an investigative tone. "And how do you intend to pay for this today?" Marcus realized that he hadn't been offered a seat, nor water, nor champagne, courtesies that clearly were part of the ritual for other customers. "Bank transfer," he responded calmly, although he felt the first pulse of indignation. "I see." Richard tilted his head. "Would it be possible to see some proof of funds? Just as a precaution. These are high-value items." Marcus looked discreetly at the couple on the other side of the store, who were trying on various models, without any mention of financial proof. "Of course," said Marcus, maintaining his dignity despite the growing embarrassment. He took his bank statement from his pocket and placed it on the counter. Richard examined the document with barely disguised skepticism. Meanwhile, Marcus noticed the young salesperson making a subtle gesture to the security guard, who began to approach casually. The atmosphere in the store had completely changed. The other customers were casting curious glances in his direction, some whispering among themselves. "You know," continued Richard, returning the statement with a dismissive gesture, "this particular model has a waiting list. Perhaps we could show some more accessible alternatives?" The implication was crystal clear. Marcus took a deep breath. "Mr. Bennett," said Marcus, having noticed the name on the badge, "I'm here specifically for this model, for which I've saved for 3 years. I have the necessary funds, as you can verify from the statement. I'd like to know why I'm being treated differently from the other customers present." The direct confrontation, albeit polite, seemed to destabilize Richard. His eyes narrowed, and a redness appeared on his neck. "I don't know what you're talking about," he replied dryly. "We're just following standard security protocols." "Protocols that seem to apply selectively," observed Marcus, keeping his voice calm but firm. Richard collected the watch from the tray with abrupt movements. "Perhaps it would be better if you returned another day," he finally said. "Today we're particularly busy, and I believe your presence is making our other customers uncomfortable." The words hit Marcus like a slap. "I perfectly understand what's happening here," said Marcus, his voice betraying a slight tremor of contained emotion. "And I want you to know that you're making a serious error in judgment." Richard crossed his arms. "If you don't leave voluntarily, I'll have to ask our security guard to escort you to the exit." Marcus kept his head high as he walked toward the door. The fresh air of San Francisco hit Marcus's face as a stark contrast to the suffocating environment he had just left. He breathed deeply, trying to recover the composure he had always maintained in difficult situations. It was then that he heard a familiar voice calling his name. "Marcus! Hey, Marcus!" Turning around, Marcus found himself facing Steph Curry walking in his direction, wearing dark glasses and a discreet cap. "Steph, what are you doing here? I thought you were on retreat with your family," asked Marcus, genuinely surprised. "Last-minute change of plans," explained Curry, approaching. Then, noticing something in Marcus's countenance, he frowned. "Is everything okay? You seem shaken." Marcus hesitated. For years, he had maintained a separation between his personal life and his work. But something in that encounter broke that barrier. "Actually, no," admitted Marcus, pointing discreetly at the store. "I just had a rather unpleasant experience in there." In a few words, Marcus related the discriminatory treatment he had received. As he spoke, he noticed Curry's expression progressively hardening. "That's not right," said Curry, with a quiet determination. "Let's go back in there." "It's not necessary, Steph," Marcus protested. "Exactly why we need to go back," interrupted Curry, with a seriousness that admitted no contestation. "Nobody should get used to this." The door of prestige timepieces opened again. Richard Bennett was in the same spot when he looked up and saw Marcus returning. His initial expression of irritation froze when he recognized who was accompanying him. The interior of the store fell into immediate silence. The few customers present stopped what they were doing, mouths agape at the presence of the Golden State Warriors star. "Good morning," greeted Curry with a politeness that contrasted with the firmness in his eyes. "You must be the owner of this establishment?" Richard seemed to have momentarily lost the ability to speak. His face oscillated between shock and growing dread as he connected the dots between Marcus and Curry. "Yes, I'm Richard Bennett," he finally managed to say. "It's an incredible honor to receive you in our humble store, Mr. Curry." Curry briefly shook the offered hand, but his countenance remained serious. "I'd like to formally introduce you to someone who apparently wasn't properly recognized here today," he said, placing a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "This is Marcus Johnson, my personal driver for 4 years, and, more importantly, a person I fully trust." Richard's face visibly paled. "Marcus told me about the experience he had here this morning," continued Curry. "I must say I'm deeply disappointed with the treatment he received. There was a terrible misunderstanding," stuttered Richard. I would never. "Marcus came here today to buy a watch that he has admired for years," Curry cut in. "He saved for a long time and deserves to be treated with the same respect and dignity as any other customer." Richard ran his hand through his hair, visibly destabilized. "Absolutely, Mr. Curry. It was a terrible error in judgment on my part. Mr. Johnson," he turned to Marcus, "I offer my most sincere apologies for the inadequate treatment. Where before there had been suspicion and disdain, now reigned an almost surreal atmosphere of exaggerated service." The young salesperson quickly brought 2 glasses of champagne and the carefully arranged watch. Marcus put the submariner on his wrist, feeling its satisfying weight, admiring the precision of the finish. "It's perfect," he said, allowing himself a moment of genuine appreciation despite the circumstances. "Absolutely magnificent on your wrist, Mr. Johnson," agreed Richard. "And, of course, we'll offer a special discount as a gesture of our most sincere—" "No special discount will be necessary," Marcus calmly interrupted. "Just the fair price that would be offered to any customer." The transaction was completed with surprising efficiency. When they finally left the store, the feeling was bittersweet. The dream of years had been realized, but the taste of humiliation still remained. In the days that followed, a store client had partially recorded the scene, and the video spread quickly across the internet. Prestige Timepieces found itself at the center of a public relations storm. Richard quickly issued a public apology statement, but the damage to the reputation was already done. A week after the incident, Marcus received an unexpected call. "Mr. Johnson, this is Richard Bennett. I'd like to know if you could grant me a private conversation." They met at a small cafe on the Embarcadero. Richard seemed to have aged years in just 1 week. "Thank you for coming," said Richard when Marcus sat down across from him. "In the last few days, I've been thinking a lot," continued Richard. "And I can't escape the uncomfortable truth. I treated you that way because of the color of your skin." The admission hung between them, frank and irrefutable. "The hardest part was admitting to myself That it wasn't an isolated incident, Richard went on. It was the result of prejudices I've carried for decades. Recognition is the first step, said Marcus. But what do you intend to do about it? I'm closing the store for 2 weeks. Everyone will participate in a training program against racial prejudice, explained Richard. But I realized that's just the beginning. I'd like you to help me promote real changes, not just in my store, but potentially in the luxury sector as a whole. Why would I do that? Marcus asked directly. Why would I help someone who publicly humiliated me? Because you're the kind of man who values systemic changes above personal revenge. And because, honestly, I can't do this alone. In the weeks that followed, an unlikely partnership began to take shape. Richard closed the store for a complete reformulation of policies and procedures. Marcus began to act as a consultant, identifying subtle discriminatory practices normalized in the luxury trade. 3 months after the original incident, Marcus and Richard organized an event, Conversations on Inclusion in the Luxury Market. The panel featured diversity experts, industry representatives, and Steph Curry as a special guest. When I was invited to this event, I confess I hesitated, admitted Curry during his speech. But then I saw the genuine work that Marcus and Richard have been doing together, transforming a regrettable moment into a catalyst for real change. The event attracted national coverage and initiated important conversations in the sector. Prestige timepieces, under Marcus's guidance, implemented an internship program for young people from underprivileged communities interested in watchmaking. 6 months after the original incident, Marcus decided to put the Rolex Submariner on his wrist for the first time since the purchase. The watch no longer carried just bitter memories. It had transformed into a symbol of something greater, a catalyst for change. At the Chase Center later that day, Steph Curry noticed the watch on Marcus's wrist as he got into the car. "Finally wearing the Submariner, huh?" he commented with a smile. "I decided it was time," replied Marcus. "Some things are too valuable to be kept stored away." "You transformed something terrible into something important, Marcus. That's much rarer and more precious than any Rolex." Marcus reflected on the unexpected journey of the past few months. The watch on his wrist now marked not just the hours, but also the rhythm of a change that was beginning to spread. A significant step toward a world where people are judged by their character, not by the color of their skin.